Great. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Amy Ward and I'm from OTM. Thank you for joining what is probably now our 7th or maybe even 8th, I think it might be week 7 of these outreach webinars that we're doing, which all came about as part of a virtual helpline idea that the team set up about 8 weeks ago now. It has evolved over the last several weeks and we're very lucky to have some great people within the Brisbane marketing and communications community have joined us in these sessions. The whole idea of the sessions is that we really want to help our community of marketers and communicators and creatives as we're all muddling through what has been a very different time for most of us. This week I'm really pleased to welcome onto the line with us Heylee Menzies from QSuper. Heylee has a focus on digital products and digital production and web and other digital marketing at QSuper. And we have Isabel Taylor, who is a marketing content executive with Corp Australia. Izzy joined Corp earlier this year and probably had about a month of the old normal before being thrust into the new normal that we're all working in now. So welcome Isabel and welcome Heylee. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We've got a real mix of people, a mix of industries and different marketing roles represented in our audience online today. So I think it's going to be quite a varied and broad conversation, although the focus will be around content and digital marketing. Having said that, we're happy to take questions in other topic areas for marketing as well. We've got people from retail, banking, legal services, the timber industry, recruitment, consulting, and I'm looking down at my list here because it's such a long list of industries we've got represented, community services, manufacturing, so quite a broad range, and people in roles through from marketing coordination to digital marketing, heads of marketing, some business owners, some independent consultants, so again quite a broad range of people on the line. Like I said, we will focus in a bit today on content marketing and digital marketing because those are the two areas that Isabel and Heylee are working mostly in at the moment. It would be nice to start, each of you shared with me prior to this call the changes that you've gone through over the last couple of months as you've adapted to the COVID-19 situation and what it is that your customers and audiences are looking for. I might turn over to you, Isabel, put you in the spotlight for a moment. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about what it is that you've I guess the way you've been working in the last couple of months, because it sounds like you've had an amazing pivot there at Corp.
Sure. So hello everyone, I'm Izzy. I work for Corp in the content amplification team. Our job is to basically amplify the content that's being pushed out, edited through, the paper, online, podcasts, and run lots of different content campaigns in line with each other. So I think when I started Corp, it was January, the start of this year. Everyone was in the office, working a national team, everyone spread around the country. We were working to a plan, and that might have been like a 6-month plan, a 12-month plan, but we knew what was kind of coming up. And then COVID hit and Monday we were like, okay, we'll be working from home as of, tomorrow. So take your stuff home. And from there, we've had to literally change how we work. The format of the paper has changed. So, sections that used to have lots of content like sport don't have the content available to them. So what's happened is the paper is probably condensed a bit, but all of the content has changed to speak to what people need to read right now, what people want to know. So the front of the paper is packed with news articles, all of the updates, and then a new section has been introduced called hibernation. And basically that's got a heap of tips around how you can hibernate in home and stay happy and stay healthy. So there's cooking, recipes, lots of activities for kids through Kids News, which is one of our programs we run, mental health initiatives, there's financial advice. So that's a great initiative, but it's seen us go from working to a big plan to working very, project to project. This is what's important right now. It's going to change tomorrow. And just being really agile. So yeah.
Yeah, massive change for you guys. And I like the way you said, you did have this nice sort of 6 to 12 month plan that you were working towards, and that just had to didn't nearly go out the window and you've had to redo it. Are you doing it on a daily basis, a weekly basis? Like, what's your planning cycle?
I think I think sport's probably a good thing to look at. So we can't talk about sport until it's back on, really, or about the games that are being played. So it's really dependent on, I guess, the government, when they allow sport to come back, how it comes back. So it's changing what type of sport content it is. So like at the moment, without games, you're talking to players, you're talking to sporting experts. You know, how are they staying fit at home, and how that content will change when we go back is, what sport look like now? How do you play sport in a stadium with no one there? You know, the conversation is changing.
Yep. Yeah, great. I'm going to come back to you in a little bit. I think we'd all like to know a bit about how it is that you're practically doing that. But Heylee, it would be good if you could also just share a little background about what the last few months has looked like for you, because not dissimilar to Isabel's experience, you've had to pivot quite quickly, but a different type of audience, I guess, to the News Corp audience, and a different set of platforms. Can you tell us a bit about your experience there?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi everyone, I'm Heylee from QSuper. So what I've been doing at QSuper is I work in an Agile development squad, and we've been focusing on refreshing the website for the last over a year. And how we've been doing that is using Agile principles from, IT and software methods. So we have been very adaptive in our squad in the last year. So one of our key principles that we've always worked to is, responding to change over a plan. So no one ever anticipated that it would be overnight working from home, but as the news started to break about, the world pandemic and everything coming, our team sort of foresaw what was happening, and we did the mandatory making sure our equipment works and get everyone's phone numbers and all those sort of checks in place. The way we work is a little bit different. So we have an overall roadmap of what we're doing with the digital product, which is the website. But we work in two-week sprints. And at the beginning of every 2 weeks, we plan out as a team, as a squad, what we're going to take on in that 2 weeks, what we're going to commit to, and what we will deliver in those 2 weeks. So granted, we had other things planned for, that March and early April period, and those had to be pushed back because obviously there were key content requirements that were coming in. There were key shifts that people were wanting to know during that time that we had to shift our focus to deliver while still working from home. So it was critical, I think, with our team that we couldn't just be complacent with, okay, we're working from home. It's time to relax a bit, because especially in superannuation, apart from the health crisis that's going on, I think the second biggest concern for everyone else is finances. Lots of job losses and all those terrible things. So for us to be able to provide that support to members and people who are just generally searching, I think that was really key for us to continue to deliver. So yeah, it was quite a different shift, and we had to accelerate some things that were on the roadmap to address those content needs. But yeah, it's slightly different to the way that Isabel works with News Corp, is that we were setting 2-week blocks of work.
And that was something that you were already doing, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
So has it really come into its own, that agile way of working in this environment?
Absolutely, and I think it works totally fine being remote. It was, as everyone, there was an adjustment period, but because we had been planning out our work in 2-week sprints, and we could think ahead and incorporating projects and other legislation and things that we knew were coming ahead of time, the 2-week time frame has been really quite mobilizing for our team to continue to stick together and commit to what we're doing. So I think it's definitely benefited us working in that agile way.
Mm. Tell me, this is a question for either of you, when we're creating content or campaigns, it's, there's a lot of ideas generation and a lot of exchange of ideas, which you typically do when you're together in an office environment. Have you found that it's been difficult to do that exchange of ideas when everybody's working remotely?
I think the whole pressure of having to everybody be working at home, everyone's communication has kind of been improved in some respect. Everyone's very conscious and respectful of other people's time. People don't want 400 emails a day. So there's a lot of, succinct kind of messages being put across. And I think there's lots of chats. I know lots of people using lots of chats and messengers. We use Hangouts. That's where you can kind of tic-tac over things and have a bit more of a conversation. But an email is kind of like actioning, this is what needs to happen. Let's, get stuff happen, approved, whatever, you know.
Yeah. How about you, Heylee? Have you found a similar experience with the exchange of ideas?
Yeah, I think once again there was always that teething period and adjustment, but it's been and everyone is working in different ways. So people have different responsibilities. There's children, there's partners, there's all those sort of things. So once again, our squad has always been big on communication. So, you know, we talk to each other every single day. We have daily stand-ups. We're talking about what's going on, what's blocking our work, what issues we've got, you know, how we can help each other. So we've always had daily check-ins, and I think that's continued to help us with that communication while being at home. But the one thing that was missing is because we were a co-located squad, so we all sat together in the office, and what turned into what used to be desk drop-ins, you know, we've had to adapt and we've had to schedule different just general chats throughout the week to discuss different projects and things that we're working on that generally would have been solved with a tap on the shoulder. But that way we have dedicated time in the week where, you know, people can commit to it with their children and all those other priorities, and we can, you know, soundboard what's going on and get out what we need. But similar to Isabel, there has been more wider communication in the organisation that is very succinct. So, you know, people don't want, you know, like Isabel said, lots of emails, and communication is getting much clearer when it does come through.
So there's actually some benefits that have come out in streamlining the way we work and communicate, it sounds like.
Definitely. And projects seem to be happening faster, you know, like everyone's in this mode of, you know, oh, there's so much going on, we need to change this, you know, this project's happening now. So I've just noticed personally, like from a News Corp perspective, stuff is getting off the ground and in market really quickly and efficiently because everyone's just like making it happen.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's a good outcome for what has been a challenging situation for many of us. We had some questions come in this week, and I've got them written down here, so I'm looking at my piece of paper here. The first set are around content generation, and I think as marketers, we're all often challenged with content generation, just keeping on top of it. So how do you guys come up with this is a multi-part question. How do you come up with the ideas for your content? And as you're answering these, it'd be great if you could sort of think of some tips that maybe other marketers in other industries might even be able to take away from this. So how do you come up with the ideas for your content? How do you determine what formats are going to work best? So, you know, video's the new black, should it be audio, should it be a podcast, should it be a written article, what other sorts of content, should it be downloadable material? There's more questions, might just stick with those. So how do you come up with the ideas, and then how do you determine what sort of content?
I might start. In superannuation, it's obviously quite specific that the types of content that we're talking about are financial service related. So it's how people are adapting in with their finances, with their super, and there's super reforms at the moment that people can have early access to their super. So the content that I think we're pushing out as an organisation is digestible pieces of information. So how people can take action with what's coming out from the government, tips on how to, you know, people are very concerned about what's going on in the market, and I think superannuation is one of those topics that people don't necessarily understand too much about. So it's really, once again, putting out content that is assuring people who have never been involved in super, that has the questions now, you know, what's happening with my money, all those sort of things is reinforced and instilling that confidence in our members. In regards to format, coming from numbers wise, so like my recommendation there is look at where your numbers are. So what's been getting the top, you know, traffic to, like, is it your blog, is it your social media channels? That might give, you know, the audience members sort of an indication of where to put their resources in generating content. Like,
so looking at your analytics and really seeing what, where people are, it makes sense.
Definitely. And also if you can, you know, access your own search analytics and search data to see what people are actually searching for, you know, either using search agencies, or if you have your own SEO specialist to actually see what people in the market are searching for, and if your brand can answer some of those questions.
Yeah, and actually that's a great segue into another question we've got, and that is around insights and knowing how do you know what it is that your audience wants to hear about. So analytics and search reports, I suppose, is a great way of finding that out. Are there any other ways that your teams, and this is for both of you, that you get those insights? Is it market research services? Like, where should people be going to know, and particularly now, because what people wanted to know 3 months ago might be very different to what they want to know now. So how are you working that out now?
So we have an SEO specialist that is in our team. So he does quite a lot of research into what's going in the market, you know, comparing year on years and everything like that. But another, I guess, helpful tip is to look at Google Trends, because that gives you search trends of what's happening, you know, in Australia, globally. And, you know, you can see the difference in volume. So, you know, coronavirus wasn't really searched in December, but you obviously see that starting to peak, and you see these different trends coming through. And, you know, potentially you can start looking in Google Trends with coronavirus and something specific to your business or industry, and see what the search volumes and the questions are like there. Yeah,
that's great advice. So do you do it any differently at News Corp, Izzy?
We are really blessed with a great system at our end, and it literally analyzes what articles are really doing well, you know, what's overperforming, what's underperforming. And I think from there we can kind of gauge what content are people wanting to read. You know, we also have the ability to like allow people to comment on articles and that kind of stuff online. So you're getting direct feedback from your clients, which can be very truthful. So we've got that data. I also find, just personally, like, everyone's always talking on LinkedIn. There's always insights. I have a premium account. I definitely would recommend that for, you know, any professional. And then just talking to peers as well, like my own personal network. You know, someone might work in a different industry and have a different perspective on things as well. So as well as all of those online tools and programs, really leaning on your network and having those conversations about what's working, and jumping online and seeing what other people are doing and what other, you know, what type of content are they pushing out right now, and really putting yourself in your own customers' shoes, going, what do they want to know right now? Like, coronavirus is, how does that affect them right now in this minute? And I think it's a day by day thing at the moment. So content is changing.
Yeah, and you're right about that change, because what we were talking about even in this series, you know, 4 or 5 weeks ago is quite different to what we might be talking about this week, and the questions that are coming in are very different. So that, you know, we were all sort of in a state of a bit of anxiety and fear and confusion several weeks ago. That's probably peaked, and we're now looking at, okay, what's going to happen next? What does the near-term future look like? And I don't think anyone's got any crystal balls there, but you know, we've just got to keep help people navigate through that. I have some more questions. A lot around content, actually. Creating and scheduling your content plans. You both talked about that a little bit, but would you mind just giving us some maybe some specifics on how it is that you actually do your content planning, and any particular tools or processes that you use that could be helpful for people on the line?
Sure, I'm happy to go first this time. Probably from a News Corp perspective, you know, an idea is generated, it needs to be approved, then it's briefed in, and then it's rolled out. You know, it kind of needs to go through these sanitizing processes. Prior to that, in agency world, using programs like CoSchedule, Hootsuite, and stuff like that, where you can actually visualize when your content's going out, and if you're posting an article or a blog, how are you going to make the most of that in, you know, where is it being shared across social media? So I think that's a really good visual planner. And just personally as well, when I'm like mapping something out in my head, I just love jumping into an Excel spreadsheet and just having it right in front of me and being able to chop and change things around until I'm happy to then put it in the system. That's just how I work.
Yeah. Do you use any different tools than that, Heylee?
Well, so I'm specifically talking about the website here and how we're working with I guess, our Agile process. So, you know, we have our CMS, which is our bread and butter of pushing out content. But you know, we use tools such as like Jira and Confluence, which is where we house all our sort of content. And that's, you know, we've moved from, I guess, especially on like web content, we moved from, you know, Word documents circulating to there's one source of truth in Confluence, and, you know, it's got version histories, and that's what we then use to publish content online. So it's an internal tool, and, you know, for our external tool, we have our social team that uses publishing scheduling tools. But yeah, it's a little bit different because you know, I'm specifically focused on what's happening on the website and the planning for that.
Yeah, great. Well, I think there's some helpful things in there. I mean, it's different for different people in depending on the size of the organisation you're in, I suppose, and you're both fortunate to be working for fairly large organisations where you have access to some good tools and teams. But those same tools or similar versions of those tools, like you mentioned, Jira and Confluence, you know, there's lots of things out there. Trello, we use Teams at OTM, and Asana and a few other tools. There's lots of low cost and even free ones out there that people can access to be doing this with their content. And those sorts of tools, we're also noticing ourselves, they're really coming into their own at this time when everyone's distributed. And I agree with you. I think it was Izzy, you said, you know, your communication's actually in some ways improved. It's become quite succinct and very on point. So we're able to move. I mean, we're marketers and communicators. We're pretty good at doing this stuff innately, I guess, but it's really pushed us to be a lot more efficient during these times. I've got a question that's come in from one of the attendees. Neethi is interested to know what top 3 things have improved in the way you communicate that you would like to see continue in a post-COVID returning to the office environment. So maybe if you could each do 1 or 2 things, the top 3 things that we can get out for the audience there.
I think just off the back of like the systems we've been using, we do have a project management system we use, and it's like, from my understanding, it was pretty new. And with introducing technology and different ways of working, it takes a long time for people to, I guess, accept that, change their behavior. And already I've noticed that people are using that as a source of truth. You know, it's Bible. So definitely, you know, using technology properly and to the best of its, you know, potential. As I said earlier, being really succinct with messaging, and probably really being time efficient as well. Like just getting stuff done, like cutting out a bit of the conversation you don't need to have. Like, let's get this live.
Yep. Anything that you would like to see continue, Heylee, that wasn't perhaps there before this situation?
I mean, our team, so we've got our squad, and then we've got like the digital team. You know, we have 3 weekly catch-ups, and I think that's been quite helpful. And they're structured as well, so it's a bit of social, and it's a bit of, you know, general business updates as well. And I think that the frequency of that has definitely increased with being remote, because previously that would only happen, you know, fortnightly or depending on what was going on. But I can't like stress enough how like important and how valuable our daily stand-ups have been in our squad. Like, I just think it was something we were doing before, and it's something we're doing during, and it's definitely something we'll do after this. But it has been so very important to keep up with the day-to-day. I think daily stand-ups, you know, the value of it varies depending on the type of work you're doing. If you're doing project work where your daily tasks aren't changing too much, it might not have as much value. But yeah, definitely loving daily stand-ups. The value is great.
Yeah, great. They're great things that let's hope keep going once this situation evolves further. And I would agree with those. I've also appreciated the authentic connections with people, so with team members and with clients, and in general with our community. I've found that you know, picking up the phone, dropping an email to someone, there's been a lot of really genuine conversations going on. People are very happy to help other people and to share ideas and to, I guess, to collaborate on things, and that's something that I would really like to see continue going forward. We've talked a lot about content, and we've also talked a bit about ways of working. with your Agile methodology, as you said, Heylee, Agile started out in the world of software and information technology, but it's being picked up in lots of different areas of businesses now, and particularly in marketing. Any advice for people who haven't taken on board Agile ways of working, how they could maybe get started with that and introducing it into their teams?
Yeah, I guess what was fundamental for when we started our Agile project was, you know, we were a cross-functional squad that came together, but so there was people that had never worked with each other before. So the key things there was really getting an understanding of everyone's skills, and understanding of, you know, how people like to individually work. It might be different doing this remote, but there's definitely ways that you can do it remote. And also, you know, it was really key to, you know, develop what your goals are as a squad or as a team, and not particularly for a project or a day-to-day, but what are you overall striving to do? So, you know, our squad overall, we're looking at putting, you know, the customer or the member first, and it's always iterating and improving. So, you know, those are really functional to how we operate. And so when we get to a problem, when we get to an issue, we go back to our principles that we set as a squad. So we sat down and we determined what was in those principles and in our goals. And, you know, whenever there's issues, we come back and look at that and we go, okay, well, we've committed to these goals. How does this problem how do the goals influence this problem, and how can we, you know, overcome that? So I guess it's fundamentals to any sort of team building, but those are really key in, I guess, developing a great Agile method is really that team structure in the first and foremost instance.
Yeah, great. We do a bit with Agile as well, and we have a couple of people in our team who are really well versed in it. And I'm not sure actually if you're on the line today, Noelle. If you are, maybe pop your hand up. I don't think she is today. She's one of the people on our team who does a lot with Agile. I would like to hold up a book, but it's actually propping up my camera at the moment. But it's going to ruin the visuals for this webinar. But this is a book that I think anyone in marketing who's interested in doing or taking on Agile as a way of working. I'm going to hold this up to my camera. Oh gosh, what not to do in a live webinar. So this is a book by Jake Knapp, and we'll put the information for this on our website so that you can get it, or even maybe Nia, you might be able to pop this into the chat window, because it's probably coming up back to front. Is it for everybody else? So it's Sprint for Marketing. And it's a great read. You can buy it online. We have no affiliation with the book. I'm not getting anything out of spruiking this book. And it's by Jake Knapp. Definitely worth having a look at if you want to start thinking about how you can bring Agile into your practices. Now, let me see if I can get my camera set back now. Oh, great. Thanks, Nia. Nia's just put a link into the chat window for all the attendees. Excellent. All right, I just a reminder that if you do want to put any questions to the panelists, just pop them into the chat window or the Q&A tool. We talked a bit about insights and adapting. We've had a question come in around customer journey. So how... First of all, is customer journey mapping and looking at the customer journey something that either of you do a bit either in your roles or that your teams do?
Yeah, it needs to be considered, I guess, for every bit of content that we're pushing out. And I think we always come back to, you know, what's our objective here with this content, and like how are people going to find it? So is it a podcast? Is it an online article? Is it a press article? And I think a good example for planning a journey is, you know, podcasts. Like, how do people get to that podcast platform that might be taking them off the site? So, for example, I'm working on a podcast at the moment called I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin. It's a true crime podcast. When it was released, it was #1 on Apple, which is amazing. But people can listen to the podcast on Spotify, on Apple, and then on our true crime australia.com.au. So they've got 3 different options about how they're going to get there. Obviously, we would love them to be coming to True Crime Australia, but, you know, the exposure is also amazing from Spotify and Apple. So thinking about how we're promoting that, you know, in paper, we've got a press ad, we're pointing people to all three of those areas, but True Crime Australia is kind of standing out. On social media, linking them back there, making it really easy to listen to. What you wouldn't want to do there, I guess, is, you know, from social media, just link them to, say, the Career Mail, and then say, go and find True Crime Australia from there. So it's making it as seamless as possible for them. And I guess that's something that, you know, seems obvious, but if you don't talk about it as a team and say, what's the plan for this, what's the plan for this, that's how things get missed. So I think that's what we're really careful about. If something's going live, what's the flow-on effect from that? If you're listening to you know, a radio ad and it's telling people to do something, it better be pointing them to the right place, you know, so they're consuming the right content.
Yeah. So how do you do that customer journey mapping? I'll just note that Heylee's video is failing, but she's still definitely in the conversation with us. You're still there, aren't you, Heylee?
Yes, still here, but something's happening. Definitely.
We can still hear you.
Yep.
Were you just listening to that bit about customer journey mapping? We had a question come in about how you do your customer journey mapping and how you then link that to your content.
Yeah. Well, I guess with us, you know, when we're planning out pages, when we're planning out our content, it's all, you know, at the beginning, it's always considering what stage of the journey is the customer in. You know, we have multiple different customer journey paths, as I'm sure Izzy does at News Corp. But it's really thinking what we want the goal to be from that visit, what we want, you know, or if people are there searching for particular information, what's going to make their journey better, what's going to improve their experience. So I guess in a roundabout way, customer journey mapping is always embedded into the goal and the principles of what we're delivering. And, you know, there's overall, I guess, business value in, and we have multiple different customer personas that we address as well.
Yeah, great. Okay.
I think,
are there any, oh, sorry, you go.
I was just going to say further to like the customer journey, it does change. And with all of this Corona, you know, it's how Corona's changed business. More people for us were, you know, reading articles online as opposed to going and picking up the paper because they're being told to stay at home. So their customer journey was changing. So that's also another consideration for us, and where we're putting the effort, you know, we need, in that case, to tell people you can get your news from the newspaper still online. You know, you can still get, you can subscribe for the same price type of thing. Or another thing that the sales team was, they put a deal into market to make the subscription cheaper so that people could still access the paper online now.
Yeah. Actually, and that raises a good question. Has your focus in your organisations been on customer acquisition at the moment, as in new customer acquisition, or has that sort of petered off a bit and you're just focusing on your existing customers? Has there been any different sort of focus on whether you're trying to get new customers or not?
Well, both. We're definitely trying to retain customers, and you know, through that is publishing great content. So people are paying for the service to receive really timely updates, really correct updates, and frequent. So meeting the existing customers' needs, and then I guess in a crisis like this, if you offer a news platform, that's where people are going at the moment. So that's just been a natural kind of progression that people are signing up, and just being able to offer, I guess, a cheaper subscription at the moment when people, you know, are being laid off at work and stuff. That's also really great that has been able to happen as well to accommodate that need.
Yeah, great. Any different for you, Heylee?
I suppose, you know, we had a lot of continuous acquisition, marketing activity and all that sort of stuff in market. And I think when this really hit, some of that activity was paused because it's, you know, it's sensitive nature, and, you know, people are already overwhelming our contact center. So, you know, our focus shifted from, and it's not the whole focus of the organization because there's still business goals that are underlying, but, you know, especially with our squad, it focused from, okay, we'll pause those overall goals and we need to focus on what's happening at the moment. And that was, you know, looking at the data, looking at insights, speaking to our contact center, you know, understanding what those questions were coming in from the people on the front line, and developing content to address those concerns and pushing that out via the relevant channels.
Yeah, yeah. And that makes sense because, you know, you've got to go where people's emotions are at, and where the their need is, and also being mindful of your own operations. It's a great point you bring up there, Heylee, that you're going to be getting a lot of inbound communication from customers, existing customers, with lots and lots of questions. It's probably not the right time to be doing campaigns to try and generate new customers if you're not set up to be able to handle that influx.
Definitely. Yeah.
Great. It doesn't look like we've had many other questions coming in on the chat window. And we have actually gone through the questions that came in before the call. Are there topics that either of you would like to talk about, or maybe some tips or points that you think would be useful for the audience?
I'm happy I would just say in this time, like, it's a very, like, every day is different at the moment. So I would be listening to your customers. I'd be speaking to them. Maybe it's not the time it's appropriate to push them for a sale, but maybe it's an appropriate time to check in and see how they're going, and ask what content, what are you wondering at the moment? What do you need to know? Try and relate it, I guess, from your business offering to that person. Yeah.
I think that's great advice. Talking to your customers, talking to your network, and exactly, not trying to sell, but finding out how can we be useful for you at this time. And that's something that's come up in other conversations we've been having as well, that people, and there's research that's been done around it, people are interested in information at the moment if it's helpful, if it's authentic. They're even happy for you to sell to them at the moment if it's appropriate. If it's if it's a product or service that is actually going to be useful right now, people are happy to hear that. They're just less happy to hear about things that are being opportunistic or that seem really irrelevant at the moment.
Absolutely.
Did you have, I cut you off for a second there, Heylee. Was there something else you were going to add there?
No, just echoing what Isabel was saying is, this is, I guess, a make or break time for organisations to really build the relationship with customers. So are you useful to them, or are you opportunistic? So, this is, and exactly what you said, Amy, people are searching for content, and authentic and informative content. So, I think if you're providing something that is going to be educational and it's relevant, so I guess relevancy is the key here, because things change so quickly in this market. I think that's probably really important to maximise.
Yeah, really, really good point there. We've just had another question come in from Anna. She's interested to know whether we're seeing, or any of us are seeing, a change in the open rate for email marketing. Are either of you involved in the email marketing in your organisations?
Not myself, unfortunately.
Probably not enough to speak to it. But I know that article views and all of that, those kind of analytics, they've increased because more people are trying to, I guess, read the information about Corona that's affecting them. Yeah. I've noticed our EDMs have increased, though, the amount that are going out, and they've introduced, actually, this is a great thing to follow Corona, special Corona update EDM gets sent out quite regularly, probably daily, I think. And so that's just a snapshot of all the key information and links off to key articles that have been created that day. So that's a great opportunity that's just fallen out of Corona. Yeah, okay. So you've actually come up with new email campaigns, or email, what am I trying to say, topic areas that you're sending out, the brand new ones. It's like the hibernation section of the paper, because that's what people are wanting to read. So, here you go. It's all handed over to you. Yeah. That question, there's been a clarification on that. It's coming from someone who's in the B2B space. We do a bit of work with clients in the B2B space, and from an email marketing perspective, I'd probably say, and Nia, please jump in here if you've got a different view, but I don't think we're seeing a big change in open rates. We are counselling our clients, though, similar to what we're saying in this call, in this webinar, that keep doing your email marketing, but make sure that it's relevant, helpful, authentic. It's not just adding to the noise in somebody's inbox, because there certainly has been an overwhelming increase in the amount of content coming into people's email inboxes. Yeah. Someone else has answered here, and actually, if anyone else in the call has an answer to that question, we'd love to hear it. This person has said, in terms of an industry association, their rates are actually up.
They've always got pretty high rates, which makes sense if you're an industry association. You're usually a member of an association because you really, really want that information. But it sounds like in this time, their audience, their customers or members would probably be craving information. They probably want to know things about their industry. So if you've got an engaged member base, or you know what it is that your people or your audience is going to be interested in, you could find that you're actually getting an increase in open rates if your content's really hitting on what's going to be helpful to them. So in the B2B space, I unfortunately, I don't know what it is that this person is marketing or selling, but you know, we've got clients in information technology, and so business continuity is a hot topic right now. Working from home is a hot topic. Getting pilots off the ground is an important thing. So, you know, if you've got something really useful to send out, I think you'll probably find you do get good engagement rates.
Probably a good example was I'm on the email list for M&H Private. It's an accounting firm, and as all of the updates were coming in from the government about, you know, what money they were going to offer to help the, you know, everyone in need at this time, they were analysing what was being said and then putting it in normal terms and then pushing their EDMs out, explaining what this meant from a business perspective or from the individual. So I thought that was a great initiative.
Yeah, so doing something that's really useful like that, curating the plethora of information that's out there. Yes, we've seen some good examples of things like that as well. Yeah, great. A professional services business. So that makes sense. If you're in professional services, that there'll be information that I'm sure is useful for your clients that you could continue to send out there. We're getting close to time, and I'm not seeing any other questions coming in on the chat line. Any thoughts to wrap up, Heylee or Izzy, that you'd like to leave the audience with today?
I guess, you know, coming back to the core principles of where to create content is always just have a look at your numbers and where you're getting searching and you know, using a range of free tools or you know, SEO analytics, because I think that's really where you're going to get the most insight to content generation at the moment. And you know, do as much as you can to build up your team and you know, ensure that communication is open in two ways, because you know, this is the time that we all need it.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
And probably just to remember, I guess, bring yourself back and say, what's the purpose of this piece of content? How does it meet the customer's needs, and how is it, you know, aligning with a business objective? Definitely.
Yeah, great points, both of you. I think they're really good ones to wrap up on. And I just had some information that I wanted to share. We've been sharing market insights throughout the course of this outreach series, and we've been going to a few different sources for that, and quite timely, something came in from the lab just before this call went live. I didn't have a chance to read the whole report, but I think some very interesting information in there that no matter what industry we're in, we could be taking on as marketers, and that's where people's heads are likely to be at as this situation evolves. So we're coming out of the peak point of the crisis, I suppose, from a health point of view, but not necessarily from an economic point of view. But there are some things that people are likely to want to take with them from the changes that they have made over the last several weeks. People are really, the people that were surveyed in this research anyway, are actually enjoying a little bit of the slower pace and the reflections that they're making on their lifestyle, and the things that they've realised they can live without, and the things that have now become more important to them. So it's worth keeping that in mind no matter what industry you're in as to what people might be wanting to take forward. 52% of Australians agree that this crisis has made them consider what they really want out of their life. So people are being a bit reflective. They're also likely to be very conscious of their finances, but also the human connections and friendships and business connections and ideas exchanges. So people want to stay slow and responsible. People have been showing a greater interest and a greater respect for their local communities. And that extends to local businesses and local manufacturing and local suppliers. So I think that's something to keep in mind, again, regardless of what sort of brand or product or service it is. People will be interested in helping other people and helping people that they're connected with, whether that be personally or through where they live or through the industry that they're part of. So buying things that are made in Australia, buying things that are produced in Australia, buying things from perhaps smaller or more local brands. So that's something that I think we can all take into our programs. And then this source of information, this is not ours, this is theirs. They talk about, as marketers and as brands, we can choose as we go forward in our branding communications whether we're going to remind, show, or pivot. And so what they're talking about there is you've got to work out what's appropriate in your market and your audience. But now's the time where you've got to decide, are you going to remind people who you are and that you're still here? Are you going to show people perhaps what it is that you do now that can be helpful even in this time? Or are you going to pivot? Are you going to have to pivot your organisation or your business or your marketing to match the times? So that's just some thoughts that perhaps hopefully will be useful that you can all take away with you. I'd like to thank Heylee and Isabel for joining us today. Really appreciate you being so generous with your time and your insights. You've had some amazing experiences, it seems, and some stuff that you're going to take with you after we're all back, you know, working in offices again. So thank you, Izzy and Heylee.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks for having me.
And thank you to everybody who joined us online. We really appreciate you giving your time to participate and to submit questions in the session today and beforehand. As always, you can submit questions on our website. Just go to theotmcompany.com and there's a link to the page about this. You can also just send us an email if that's easier, helpline@theotmcompany.com. Connect with any of us on social media. We'll be happy to help with the questions. And if we don't know the answers to things, we'll definitely reach out to our broader community of consultants and clients and marketers and communicators and work to get you an answer. We encourage people to share this. It is a free service. We're doing it on our own time to just build this community and help people across different industries. And that's it from me today. Thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you in one of the next sessions throughout May.